Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of Matthew. Today we're looking at Matthew chapter 24, verses 22 through 28. Jesus, of course, is talking to us about his second coming, about last things. For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if someone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false messiahs, false prophets will appear. They will perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. I've told you ahead of time. So, if anyone tells you, "There he is, out in the wilderness," do not go out. Or, "Here he is in the inner rooms," do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Now, Jesus is talking about the second coming in this passage. That is clear, it's obvious. And he says it will be after the great distress, a distress unequaled in the history of the world. Now, normally in the church, we refer to this as the time of the Great Tribulation, the Great Persecution, as it were. It's a time of intense pressure upon the church, persecution of the church. It is tribulation. Now, one thing to note about the period of tribulation, or the Great Tribulation, the Great Distress, as this passage says, it is not different from what the church has ever experienced. Throughout the history of the church, we've experienced times of persecution, times of harassment, times of tribulation. So the church has experienced this before, always. It's just that at the end of time, that tribulation becomes more intense, more focused, more demonic, as it were, fueled by the spirit of Antichrist. So Jesus says there'll be this time of great distress. So hold to me and don't be deceived. He says one of the marks of that period of distress, of tribulation, is there will be many spiritual deceivers. There will be false messiahs. Those who actually claim to be the Christ. There will be false prophets who claim to speak in the name of Christ but do not. Some of these false prophets, false teachers, false messiahs will even perform what seem to be signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So be on your guard, be aware. I've told you this is going to happen. So hold true to me. Now, how do we do that? By holding fast to the Word of God, by founding ourselves in the revealed Word, thus protecting ourselves against deception. When I know the truth, when I know what is true according to the Bible, I will not be deceived by the false teaching or the false prophets. So Jesus tells us to hold true to Him, and that will protect us during the time of tribulation, during the time of deceivers from being led astray. Now he says, this will end, the tribulation period will end, it will be at its most intense when I return again. And my coming will be seen by all. Just as lightning comes from the east and is seen in the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. When Jesus returns, every eye will see him. Now, those who believe will welcome him with great joy. Of course, those who don't believe will fear because they understand judgment is coming. But all will see. And then this passage ends with an interesting phrase. It says, wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Wherever there is a body, there the vultures will gather. What does that mean? Well, it says it's an idiom, a proverbial statement. Jesus is saying that you know when you see vultures, you know there's a dead body somewhere around. When you see the vultures, you know there's a carcass somewhere around. Likewise, when you see these signs, the great distress, the great persecution, the harassment against the church, when you see false Christ and false messiahs trying to deceive even the elect, when you see these things occurring, you know that I will soon return. You know that the blessed hope of the church is about to be fulfilled, and that blessed hope is that Jesus will come again. Jesus is returning. So the second coming is our hope, that even when things look bleakest, even when things are most dismal, persecution, tribulation, false teachers, false doctrine. Even those times we hold to Jesus and we hold to the hope that he is coming again. Even so, come quickly, Lord. Come quickly. We long for the day when Jesus will return. We don't know when it will be, but we know he is coming again. That is the hope of the church. Jesus says it is a certainty. And it is. Join us again tomorrow as we continue looking at Jesus' teaching on the second coming in our 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of Matthew.